Welcome to our podcast offerings, where we invite you to take responsibility for your own well-being, reclaim your energetic sovereignty, embody authentic living, and come home to your true self. We are two sisters, two oceans apart. Maya Lotz from the Energy for Life Wellbeing Practice and Sandy Lotz Viner from the Inspired Life Coaching Practice. Together we bring you the Ocean of Abundance podcast and lots of possibilities to engage with when you choose to align with the wisdom of nature. In this episode, we continue to look at the Reiki Precepts. In our previous episode, we offered an overview of the precepts before discussing the preamble for today only. This episode, we will look at the first precept. For today only, I will let go of anger and ways of interpreting that. As a reminder, here is our version of the precepts, and we invite you to follow the link in our show notes to download a copy to use as your own daily reminder. For today only, let go of anger, let go of worry, be grateful, be honest, be compassionate. Hi there, Sandy. Lovely to have you with me again today.
Hi, Maya. It's a beautiful day, and I'm glad to be here.
I feel, Sandy, it's appropriate to start our session today with a poem that's very meaningful for both of us before we continue our exploration of the Reiki Precepts. Would you mind reading The Guest House by Rumi for us?
Oh, yeah, I do love that poem. Okay, let's see. The Guest House by Rumi, and this translation is by Coleman Barks. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
Beautiful, thank you. I felt we needed that to set the tone as we begin today's discussion with the first precept, which is for today only, I will let go of anger. And I think just the word anger sometimes is a scary concept for most of us. What do you think, Sandy?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that this poem is exactly about that. For today only, invite whatever comes up for us. And so it's so beautifully aligned with the Reiki precepts. But anger might be the visitor of the day. And for some people, that might be uncomfortable because we don't really like to be angry, if we're honest about it. And I think we're not sure how to work with that energy to express what's going on underneath the anger, but also to maybe discharge the intensity and to maybe use it more creatively so that it can be transmuted into something more practical.
Yeah, and I think that I wanted to emphasize also keep the preamble there. We were talking recently about when our dad passed away. You mentioned to me that in a way, anger was your armoring for various different reasons at different stages of our life, we may be in an angry phase, or it is just a day where anger shows up and you're uncomfortable with anger and it can feel overwhelming. So it is this invitation to say, all the guests are welcome, and anger serves a purpose. In fact, just to frame it, underlying anger is a reaction to fear or a pain response. And if it is a reaction, we can change it. Anger is a natural and normal reaction to perceived threats, injustices, or frustrations. And this precept is not saying suppress it, it's saying become aware of it, be with it, offer it presence, and know that it will come around. Do not be afraid of the anger and where it is coming from. Go to the root cause. And I know you like emphasizing root cause, so do you want to pick it up from there?
Right, because anger is sometimes just the bodyguard of something else. It could be pain that we're experiencing, or it could be fear for a lot of us. And both of those can come up for people when they're going through difficult times. So if you use the example of somebody going through the loss of a parent and maybe they are younger or less experienced with loss, if you have not been given some kind of education around emotions and how to work with emotions, the difficult ones, you might be showing the anger as a bit of a mask so that people can't really see what's going on. And so if we can dialogue with our anger to find out, what are you trying to tell me? What is lying under it? What is really going on here? And we need to pull back the layers. At first, we might just say, I'm angry. But then if you start peeling back layers, you will get to the true cause that's going on there. And that is where you can start the healing so that you can truly get to the part where you can affect the change. It's as simple as asking anger, what are you trying to tell me? Or alternatively, another way of saying it, if you were pain, what were you trying to tell me? If you were fear, what are you trying to make me aware of? You know, asking that question the other way around.
And bear the preamble in mind, especially if you feel uncomfortable around anger. Some people may well be comfortable with their anger already, but remember, it's just for today. This is the visitor that's there. And I'm going to offer it presence. It's a guest at my table. And as you say, ask it questions so that I can learn about this guest in my house, which we all have it. We all get angry or are triggered.
It's a normal response if a boundary was crossed or your values were not acknowledged or some transgression. But I would say something else about keeping in mind the preamble just for today. But that doesn't mean you have to work with anger the entire day. You checking in the morning to see who is the guest that is arriving, and you give them their 15 minutes of fame, if you want to use that word, but they don't get the entire day. They have so many minutes or so many seconds, or they only get a certain spot. Then the anger goes dormant. They don't get to be the main character of the rest of the day. Because I think it's easy to put up real estate in that difficult emotion, and you don't want to do that. You want to visit, acknowledge, investigate, and then you want to nurture yourself at some point, right? You want to go, okay, how do I contain that for now, and what can I do for me now?
Yeah, I think the importance is that we're by no means saying fuel it. We're saying if you register, that is the guest that shows up today, offer it presence and sit with it, even though it may be uncomfortable, and look at what it's trying to tell you, what is underneath, as you said, those layers. Sometimes we express something as anger, but underneath it is shame or jealousy or some other emotion. You know, there can be so many things. So emotions will shout louder and louder if you do not acknowledge them. So we are suggesting that you acknowledge, anger. I work with the precepts daily. I bookend my days with them. Some days there may genuinely be nothing on that one or on the one about worry, but I always check in. Is there anything here that is sparking anger today? What is it trying to tell me? What happened? And when I sit with it, as you say, in that curious manner, what is this about? And rather than trying to push it down, then, as you say, I find it dissipates and I enter the day, and that guest has been fed, is satisfied, and enjoys the rest of the day with me without needing to be loud.
Absolutely, because difficult emotions do not, as you say, evaporate, right? It needs attention. In It needs our intention to give it attention, I guess. And then once it's been heard and recognized, it's almost like sitting with it, not forever, but for a period of time on a regular basis. It dissolves or dissipates as we have a better understanding of what is lying under it. So, say for instance, if we've heard the saying that you either choose to live out of fear or from love. Now, let's say you peel back that onion of anger and you see minus fear. Then I have the wisdom and the awareness to make a mindful choice to either respond to the fear because sometimes it's really trying to save my life, or to put it into perspective that that fear is not really valid. It's fabricated. It's not the truth, right? And then I can choose what would the choice of love look like here. On the other hand, if I find out that what's under my anger is pain, my question to myself is, how can I be compassionate to myself in this moment of suffering? Then anger doesn't ride the bus for the rest of the day. Anger gets to go to the back seat and I take over driving the bus, because I think anger can be something that can hijack us in life, of course. You've heard that seconds of anger can take you hours to diffuse if you acted out on your anger. And that's a heck of a lot of time wasted, right? But also, I think anger can be a shield that is going to keep people at a distance because of intensity of the anger. And then we can never get to the connection part. Because if we keep people at arm's length with our anger, well, how do they connect to us? It might be the underlying root cause of our pain. I'm looking for understanding and connection, but I'm showing up in anger.
Yeah. And I was thinking sometimes we say we're anxious about doing new things, but if there's other things going on, or maybe even not, for some people, anger can be just a natural response to, I am afraid of tackling this new task. And the boxing gloves go up. And this checking in the day may be, if you notice it's there, you might realize, I signed up for that new class. Look, I'm defensive. I'm afraid. And then, as you say, to take the time to be with yourself and that frightened one so that the little fists can drop and you find ways to soothe and encourage and gain confidence for whatever it is that lies ahead. And also, if a person feels they don't know how to do something, or something has happened, and unexpected, something in the house that needs a plumber or an electrician, sometimes that can quickly escalate into anger in a household, for example. And that is just that, I don't know what to do, that's speaking loudly. The habitual go to has become anger. That is just how some people navigate. There's so many layers and levels, as you say, that come into play. I mean, we all joke at the hangry thing, but it's real. I have recently been working with one of my children as my assistant and entering these daily sessions quite mindfully. But we both notice that at some point, one of us is beginning to step into that place. And so far, the scales have balanced beautifully. And it's usually the other one who says, "Should we have a quick lunch break?" And then, like magic, the anger is gone.
I love that example because it's so practical. People can understand how how it can show up on a daily basis. But if you peel that one back, think about what you said. We get, and we've all had that, right? Where we get hangry. And if you ask, why am I hangry? Because first of all, you acknowledge that it's not just a blanket anger, it's like a different reason or a root cause. It would be not enough self-care, right? You did not care for your needs. You did not prepare for the day ahead. And so when our needs aren't met, then, well, there you go. And with this particular situation, it's multifold because your energy in the body is dropping because you don't have fuel. So there's a physical response. Your nervous system is going to respond to that. But there's also the I don't get my needs met part, which you can kind of take outside of yourself. But if you really think about it, we're supposed to meet our own needs. It's nobody's fault. We don't plan well, but we might lash out at the nearest person in the room, right? So, but it's a perfect example. So if we just take care of our needs individually, then collectively we can work together again. And you're right. I think when you look at anger, some angers are justified. Somebody does harm to me. Maybe anger is a justified emotion. I'm not saying acting out on it in the moment is, but if it comes up, it's justified. Some angers are learned responses to protect ourselves or when we're in survival mode. And this is a perfect example. If your body is not fueled sufficiently, what is it? What is the message that it gets? You're in survival. And then the little fists come up. Dehydrated. Um, Maybe drank too much coffee the day before or the morning. I'm out of balance. I don't have the right energy to fuel this day. Uh, my mind is all over the place because I'm worried about something. Even that can then come up as an anger, right? Yeah.
And also, there's different kinds of anger. You can be angry with yourself, and there can be anger where someone was angry with you, and you go into that fright, flight, fight response, and you react and not respond. You react because their anger triggers you. Um, And then, of course, one can also have, as you say, angry thoughts of your own, which you're generating. So it's to distinguish. Am I actually angry with myself about something? Am I genuinely upset about what someone else did or said? Or is this just my response to another person's issues? What in this anger is mine, and what does it need to feel cared for and heard so that it can settle, so that it can have its nap?
Right. And as you start figuring that out, the anger will dissipate. It's almost like trying to drink from a muddy well. If the mud in the well is the anger, right? You start filtering out the debris and the sticks and the leaves, and you eventually get some kind of way of purifying the water. Now you're sitting with energy that you can do something with because it's just energy and it is a higher charged energy than, say, for instance, being in despair. And I think sometimes we might be attracted to that more powerful feeling in the body. And I get stuff done when I'm angry, or I'm more productive, and I might be attracted to that powerful feeling in the body. Whereas when we are in fear or in pain, and that doesn't feel so powerful, right? But yet that is the root cause we have to work with. And once we've figured that out, we will get to a higher vibrating frequency in our body energetically, something that's more like neutrality or optimism or hope. But you got to go through those layers to clean it up. So for some people, I think
I
anger is
love
attractive because it feels like I can protect myself with it, but
Mm.
it's not connecting, it's not harmonizing, it's not sustainable, and it's kind of destructive. It's not comfortable energy to live in.
I love the image of filtering the water. And sometimes that works, and we can identify many reasons. You know, we can go through phases in our life where you are already a little burnt out or overworked, or you have challenges at home, you care for a child with special needs, or somebody in the family is ill. And there can also be a day where it is there and you can't figure out what it is. And I think this is where, with Reiki, I've learned that even just acknowledging there is this sense of anger, but I'm not clear even what it is about or what the root cause is. And even then, just to pause and sit and say, I'm not sure why you're here, to it tones it down. The acknowledgement helps. I am going to be mindful today. There's this feeling hovering, and I'm not sure why it's there. So, as you say, then you go more gently into the day, knowing that some of the guests on board today have special needs. They need extra gentle treading today. And often anger is how people navigate in the world. They may have been a very shy child and they learned that if they got angry, people listen. And the habitual field is so strong that they now, decades down the road, and it's just their go-to manner of arriving in the day, in a workplace, at home. And it's interesting to have a look at, is this just my go-to? And have I perhaps outgrown this? And is there maybe not a better way to approach life? And often the same people are the ones who say they're lonely or they don't enjoy being around others because it's taxing. And the underlying shy one feels, you keep pushing me, you keep pushing me, and I'm so tired. So, so it's interesting, this concept of using filters to clarify, where is this coming from? What's igniting this spark?
Oh, there's so much there to respond to. And I love how the shy one that is going to choose anger, maybe because we don't know how to be assertive yet. So I got this vision when you were talking about the little shy one bringing up their little fist with their boxing gloves. If the boxing gloves can turn into little pink boxing gloves, like you tone it down and just like a tap. That whole interaction goes from a full on boxing match to a tap and run, a type of like a game. If we know how to be assertive with our words, which means if we know how to express what's going on with us, because then we are taking care of our needs.
I loved what you said there about the playfulness. If you begin to notice, oh, this is just my armoring, and maybe I can make it lighter. And we spoke in our previous episode about curiosity and wonder. And yeah, that can then help to soften that. There's another kind of anger, and it is a passive anger that is presented as in a very friendly tone of voice with hugs and the whole katootie. But if you walk away from the conversation, you register, man, there was a lot of side swipes there. And it was all so friendly. Some people, that's how their anger show up, not with fists, but with an over friendliness almost.
Absolutely. And I think that's the danger when we demonize anger and we socialize people into not working with it in appropriate ways, because then we're going to suppress and we're not going to acknowledge that we have it. And we can walk around passive aggressive because we don't know what to do with it, but the energy stays in your body. So we put a mask on, right? So now we're presenting in a contradictory way to what our body energetics is telling the people around us. And nobody wins, obviously, because I'm not sure what I'm feeling and what you're saying because it doesn't resonate. And you're feeling uncomfortable because even though you're smiling and you're kind and you're gentle and sweet, you're still on the inside in turmoil. And I think that's unfortunate that we are seeing that quite a lot because we don't know how to do emotions well. And some people aren't interested in learning. So the more education we can get out there, and it's difficult work if you think about it. It's not, not difficult as an impossible. It can be painful because we have to get to root causes. And healing is not always a straight line. Healing goes in circles and ups and downs. And sometimes when you think you've just healed, then a new thing creeps up. Letting go is one of those. If we're going through places where we have to let go, like once again, I'll refer to people in grief, it feels like you never stop letting go. You just have to keep on letting go. You can get tired of what else do I have to give up? What else do I have to accept? But there's still healing going on, although it feels like it's not. It gets better, obviously, but sometimes when we heal, it gets worse before it gets better. Even if something physical. I broke an arm, you've had problem with an arm. At 4 to 6 weeks after my surgery, I felt like my arm was worse than it was 3 weeks after the surgery. Probably wasn't, but I was doing more with that recovering hand. And my perception and my expectation of where I should have been started coming into play. So you're very hopeful in the beginning when people say you will recover in 4 to 6 weeks. And then when my expectation is not met with where I thought I was going to be, I'm not doing a push up. So now I'm upset. So now I'm perceiving that as my arm is getting worse, right? So, yeah.
You mentioned a very important word there, expectations. Two favorite hobby horses, assumptions and expectations. They are what disconnect us from one another and what often sparks anger or conflict because we are attached to how we think things ought to be, should, must, or how another ought to, should behave. But when we embrace the fact that I'm a sovereign being, you're a sovereign being, you have your way, I have my way, which is hard to do because we were socialized for same. But we live at a time on this planet where the memo is out there. Embrace the difference. See that that is still a soul, that is still a human being with different beliefs from you. I often see it on a smaller level. I'm one of those people who can't do small talk, but I notice that small talk is what we now call conversation. And I long for conversations where my opinion can be different from yours and we remain friends and we keep chatting and we keep going because that's a healthy conversation. But that seems to have been phased out because there is this assumption, expectation that we need to agree on everything. No, we don't. We would never grow. We would never invent anything new. If we didn't have moments of frustration or difference, we would never change our perspective when we all just always in agreement and wear the same shoes and the same hat. Those differences come up and they may well stir feelings of frustration or anger, but they're that moment where we are asked to reflect. And healing is messy. I really want to underline this. There's no end destination with healing. That's why I'm in favor of the term alignment, because I see the more I align with my true nature, emotions still come up, but how I resolve, dissolve, deal with my challenges, there's a difference. And of course, now we've spoken about anger, I think we also need to address something that goes hand in hand with anger, and that is forgiveness. And forgiveness not only for the other, if one feels another is the reason, but forgiveness for self, which is often the much harder one to sit with.
Definitely. I think that is the harder of the two for some of us, maybe forgiveness of self. So let's go back to the trying to do home renovations as a team, but all of a sudden we ran out of energy because we're all hangry, right? There could even be a little piece of awareness there when I realized that I didn't take care of my needs, I didn't pack in lunch, and I'm not hydrated enough, and that's why I'm now coming over as being hangry or angry. I might have to forgive myself for not for neglecting myself. So that's one way that forgiveness is going to help you in that way, because if you don't forgive yourself for making the mistake in the first place or bad planning, you might repeat that. The other thing I want to say about forgiveness is be mindful not to use forgiveness as a way to bypass getting to the root cause of the anger. If I forgive somebody else that did something to me that harmed me in some way, just because I want to be nice, I'm not going to get to the feel my pain that was really under all the anger. I have to first acknowledge that what you did was painful to me and deal with my pain, and then I can choose to forgive you.
Forgiveness doesn't mean what you did's okay. I mean, there's definitely moments where the forgiveness is offered for something you're not inviting the person to repeat that action at all. That's not what forgiveness means.
Are you trying to change the energetics of what that episode or transgression is doing to you or hindering you from experiencing in this world? You can't really fully live if you hold on to emotions or you don't deal with them. So they will stand in the way of us fully living. And I'm not saying that fully living means you'll never have another difficult emotion, but they don't ride the bus.
So, what can we do in our day when we feel anger pushing up? Say we're conscious, we become aware, or someone triggers you and you feel it. Have you got some suggestions for us? What will we do if you notice, oh my gosh, that I am so angry now?
Okay, so with anger, you always want to pause because if we've noticed that we've been triggered, we are probably in our emotional brain, right? We're not in our higher selves. For me, it always goes down to take 2 deep breaths, count to 3, take a pause, and then if you can respond from that place, you would either ask to be excused because you know that now is not the appropriate time to address this with the people in the room, or you'll request that I would like to take a break here. Can we circle back to this later? That would be like a business meeting scenario. If you find yourself triggered in a space where you can't escape the space, I would say just stay with your breath and do not respond in that moment, but notice what happened and make to yourself a note that you would want to revisit this in an appropriate time. Physical energy, like if we notice we're angry, like say it's in the morning when you do your morning practice. If you notice anger is visiting you, take that anger for a movement. Take it for a walk. Give it some energy. See if you can dance it out of your system or run it out of your system or cycle it out of your system or play an instrument or do something creative with your hand. Go into the tactile mode of doing something physical where you can redirect that energy. Clean your house. Those are the practical things that you can do. Maybe today is the day to work in the garden. I can get the holes dug so that I can put the trees in. This is a good energy to use there. You're not acting out on it, but you are banking the energy and revisiting the reason until you can formulate the email or make the phone call, or send an age-appropriate text, or ask for an intervention or a connection or a conversation. Yeah, it depends on what the anger is about. I have also resorted to excusing myself, going to the restroom, and then doing something like jumping jacks right there and then in the restroom, or a breathing exercise if that's what you can do. Or maybe your phone has got a app that can help you do some kind of meditation. You're trying to take yourself into another space energetically or physically. Visualization can help if you've trained yourself enough. What is your happy spot? If we can visualize for ourselves beforehand, where in my imagination do I have a safe space and a happy place? And if you do that frequently enough, when something comes up that doesn't ring with you or that's ruffling your feathers, instead of reacting out of anger, you visually, mentally go to that happy place in your mind. And that will probably keep you from responding habitually and will give you time so that you can choose your response. You won't just react or act out. But as you can hear, this is practice. You are not going to be able to get there if you've never practiced this when you're not triggered, when you're not angry. So therein comes the practice makes practice and incorporating these things into daily lifestyles. The one thing you will always have with you is the breath. So if you can connect back to your breath in that moment, you're taking yourself out of your mind. So your mind can't give you the stories about why am I angry and why are you doing this to me. So count your breath. Just start breathing. Just notice the breath in and the breath out. And if you focus on counting the breath or noticing the breath, you will get into your state of calm and you'll be able to choose a different response. You'll probably reduce your heart rate as well at the same time.
There's that thing where a person says, you make me feel angry, or they made me feel angry. No. Something in you rose up and felt angry. And once you start understanding that, then you also feel less afraid of when the anger arises. And you begin to understand it's something that happens within you that is actually within your control. And that understanding is quite helpful. They didn't cause it. It's an natural response from within you, which means you are in charge of it. You can, as you so rightly said, count your breaths, say, excuse me, I urgently need a restroom break. Remove yourself because you don't feel safe in that moment. Removing yourself from the situation is probably number one solution. And as you say, if you're unfortunate that you cannot leave the space, then indeed, at the very least, put your hands on your belly, feel the breath, count the breath, be with your breath, take the mental restroom break. And often anger in those scenarios, it isn't about that moment in the meeting or, those terrible family feuds about who left the tooth cap off the toothpaste. It's not necessarily about the thing that sparked the anger. There can be stories from the past fueling it, which is why that pause becomes so important. Because say we are having a bird's eye view on this person who gets triggered in a meeting, but we don't have the context of all the other meetings beforehand and all the other ways that those colleagues engage. That meeting is just the last straw, like the cap off the toothpaste or the wet shower mat on the floor. It's not necessarily the moment where it is. It's previous moments, previous stories that fuel the anger.
I'm a fan of the saying, notice what you notice. Because if I'm noticing what I'm noticing, I actually am pausing. There's no ways I can continue my conversation and notice what I notice, right? So notice what you notice, which gives me that time to pause. And you can do that by taking in a deep breath, because then they expect you to say something. And you're not going to say something, you're just going to exhale again. So there we go. You bought some time. But if you notice the toothpaste cap is off, and say your response to the toothpaste cap could be measured between 1 and 10. If my response to that cap being off is like a 7, anybody in the room and myself can assume. Now, you can assume here that this is not about the toothpaste cap. If it's more than a 5, it has history for the thing that's happening right now. Similar to driving in the traffic and somebody just happens to like swing in front of you. If it's not a threatening situation that you could actually have a collision, it's just like this guy's being impolite and pushy. If I have a 7 reaction, there's something else going on here, right? That's just a way to notice and maybe measure for yourself where your triggers are coming from and which one probably has a lot of deep roots that I need to go and look at.
It comes back to the actual precept, the let go of anger. Where am I holding on to anger?
Yeah. Do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Do I want to be right or do I want to be at peace? Something that came up too for me when we were speaking about the anger and how if we discharge that, when we share the sandpit, which is life, we will rub up against people that are different to us, as you say, and that is for perfect reasons, so that we can evolve as human beings. If everybody was the same, there's not much that we can learn, and I think we are meant to keep on learning and growing as human beings. The other thing too is that if I know that if I get angry, it's in my own power to take ownership of that, and that I have the power to dial it back, that I have the power to figure out what it's about, that I have the power to pause before I respond, then I'm less inclined to isolate and I'm less afraid of other human beings in a social setting because they don't do it to me. I have the controls, right? They can't do it to me, so they're not dangerous.
Interesting. I'm reflecting on, say, Reiki community, and then I was like comparing it with general life. And there is a lot of call to pause and a call to be silent, but also time and space shared. And it made me think that in society today, the family are in the room together and everyone is on a device and cooking. And there's someone playing music in addition to all the devices everyone's on. There's so much noise. I'm not surprised that there's a loneliness epidemic, says the one who quite likes solitude. But I do like people. And I just, as you say, it's the meaningful connection. I don't just want people for the sake of the noise, because there's so much noise already around in the world. And I think it's one of the things that fuels this erratic behavior and anger often. It's just too much. But when we tone it down and we begin to work with these practices, we have more pause. And I see for myself, then even someone like me who leans more towards the solitude side finds interacting a little easier to navigate, because in my discipline with self-practice, the next engagements go a little bit smoother. I still may prefer smaller groups or smaller settings or one-on-one, but certainly with regular Reiki practice, there is that softening because you gave yourself the space, the time to connect back to self, to inquire what is here for me, and to address it and to love it and to nurture it before you engage with other.
Right, you've addressed your needs and you've established your balance, your set point for the day. And then because you're practicing regularly, you carry that into your day with you. So if you have to course correct halfway through the day because of some event that happens, you can get back to equilibrium faster. It doesn't take you 3 days to unravel and recalibrate. You can kind of do it on the hoof. When we came out of COVID, the word around here was pivot. And now the word is agility. And we have to be able to move fast and pivot quickly, respond like a dancer on your heels. But you can't do that if you haven't practiced some of the skills. It still doesn't mean that we all want to be in a high pressure environment, but even the most remote person still needs human connection. And we will interact with others even if we're remote because of the way we live online these days. You don't have to go out. People are coming into your life via podcast or internet. And even that can, if you're not mindful, can bring up certain emotions in you because not everybody is aware that just because I don't go out of the house, I'm getting influence from the outside. So it's very important to choose.
And I think as we're beginning to head towards wrapping up, I want to once again say, let's not demonize anger. Anger is often that gateway into other areas that need healing. I recently experienced that where there was a misunderstanding where someone expressed anger, and I willingly said, I will take from this what is mine. I was fascinated to look at what came up for me. I'm not doing that person's work. They need to go and look at what happened there for them. Say there's a spat between two people. Each person takes 100% responsibility, and you look at what here is mine. It's very easy to say it's all them or it's all mine. People either go one of those routes. But actually, if you go and sit with it and go, I'll look here, what is mine? What really resonates for me here? Is there truth here? It's interesting what comes up and how much healing can come from this unfortunate, uncomfortable moment or feeling. There's such gifts in the unfortunate sometimes. And that befriending, that when anger is there, it often has very wise things to tell you about yourself and areas in your life that need your love, your compassion, your care. The other thing, before I forget to say, is I am angry is incorrect. I am feeling angry. I am not anger. It is not my identity. It is an emotion rises and subsides within me. I am feeling angry. That also helps one to befriend anger as this guest that comes and goes in your house.
And on a side note, it's important to remember the for today only part before the let go of anger precept, because it's a big task for us to instantly try to live like that. We probably can't commit to doing this every day if we've never ever tried this before. So I'm not saying to ask us to entertain this, to be doing this forever or even for the next 21 days. You only have to do it for today. And knowing that it's for today only makes that it's a micro change. And that makes it easier for my brain to wrap around it. And if I want to then attempt to do it for today, it is something that I can probably do for the rest of my life. But if I think I have to do it for an entire lifetime, it feels unattainable. If I break it down to for today, it feels that I might actually succeed and it can ultimately lead to lifelong improvement. But I have to start today and then I just repeat that again tomorrow.
It has been great chatting today about a difficult emotion for many of us. And as you mentioned before, it's smack bang right there. When you work with Reiki practice, it's one of the first places it asks you to go. Look at anger. Why is it here? How does it feel in my body? And be aware of it, because just the awareness of it begins to diffuse it. We're not saying that moments of anger won't arrive in your life. They will. But the more you feel comfortable to look at what is happening here, the easier it is to let it go and then respond appropriately or take action, allow the anger to dissipate and diffuse and be channeled as healthier energy into a more constructive, integrated life. Thank you for being here with me today. I look forward to our next episode, which is Let Go of Worry.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode, and let's see what we can do with anger and how we can befriend it before we meet again. I also look forward to the next episode because worry is something that can hijack us and prevent us from living a full and wonderful life. Thanks, Maya. Bye.